Welcome to the new Level Up Entertainment podcast. On this show, we choose a topic that's interesting to us and then assemble a panel of experts or people with unique perspectives to discuss the topic of the week. This episode's topic is Star Trek, specifically the CBS All Access shows. I'm your host, Scott, and joining me this week, we have Greg.
Sup?
You need to say hi so people know what your voice sounds like.
I said sup.
Yeah. We got Matt.
Hello, this is me. I'm Matt.
And then we have Mike.
Hello, this is me. I'm Mike.
Hi. Now we have there's a sister podcast to us, in that it's just a friend of ours podcast called Hailing Frequencies, the Next Generation podcast, where he goes week by week, episode by episode, through the eye, watching Star Trek: The Next Generation through the eyes of a new viewer, and that's that show's host, Harry. Fortunately, we're very frequent guests on that show. Which you should watch, but on that show we watch our spoilers because we don't want to ruin the series at all for Harry. However, here we're going to let him rip. So this is going to be kind of the anti-hailing frequencies a little bit. We're also going to be talking about new shows instead of ones that are 30
Are we the
years
mirror
old.
Universe hailing frequencies?
Ooh.
So we all got facial hair.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
That's right.
Things will come up again in this podcast.
We'll talk about it now.
Yeah. But real quick, before we get too deep, before we get into the CBS All Access shows, we'll give you guys a little bit of background on like how we feel about some classic Trek. We'll give you very quick spoiler-free thoughts, and then we're going to go into spoilers. If you haven't caught up, we will let you know when spoilers are about to start in case you want to stop. Without further ado, I would like to get into the show. I'm going to start with why we're into Star Trek, and I'll start it off. For me, it's usually well-written characters that have either an ethical or a philosophical dilemma that they must deal with each episode, and that's usually what's even the worst episodes. They usually have something interesting to say, and that kind of helps. That's what attracts me to the show versus a lot of other sci-fi shows. And I guess we'll start with Mike. Why are you into Trek?
I really like the episodic format with absolutely no barriers to it, so that each individual episode can kind of explore a completely different theme. It can be kind of what if things in humanity were slightly different? What if the Roman Empire was positioned next to the Mongolian Empire? And I also really like the science behind it all. I think that's it gives us something to strive for, and it that's always some stuff that I've looked forward to in the show.
All right, Matt, why don't you follow up?
I like everything about Star Trek. It is Roddenberry's Gene Roddenberry is an interesting human being, created Star Trek. He has some weird views about a lot of stuff, but he believed that humanity could be much better than we are, and he used science fiction as a lens to show how we could succeed and how we could fail. And that's really what draws me into Star Trek. There's a lot of, every alien race is really just a reflection of humanity. Every planet they visit is just another facet of one of the things that we do that is great or terrible. And it is for a show that is about going out and finding some aliens, it is a very human show. It's a very humanistic show.
All right, Greg?
Ditto. They both said pretty much everything.
All the good stuff.
Yeah, all the good stuff, and it just like this, the mismatch of everything, and just how it's a reflection of society is probably one of my biggest things about just what's going on. And Star Trek usually mirrors what's going on in the real world. That's on purpose, of course, but
the best sci-fi usually holds a mirror up to society.
Yeah, and like I think Michael was saying, that it kind of gives us something to strive for. How humanity could be something really great if we just came together and did things together.
Yeah, that's another thing I really like about Trek, like at least in the classic stuff, is the tone and like the optimistic nature of it. Well, real quick, I guess we'll also go down to our favorite and least favorite shows. I'm not counting the All Access shows. For me, my favorite series is Deep Space Nine, and my least favorite is Voyager.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I know Matt's got a different opinion on this. So why don't you tell us what's your favorite and least favorite?
My favorite is whatever I watched most recently between Deep Space Nine and Voyager.
Okay.
I love Deep Space Nine. I love Voyager. My least favorite is probably Enterprise, but least favorite Trek show is sort of like least favorite slice of chocolate cake. I'm still gonna. There's certainly some parts of it I'm going to enjoy, even if it's not the best chocolate cake. It's still chocolate cake. So yeah, but it's I like just about everything. Although I will say that I've watched very little of the animated series, mostly for kitsch value.
The animated series is buck wild.
Yeah, from what I've seen, it is real weird, which probably means I should watch more of it.
The camp fan in me really likes it, but like I'm not gonna put it above a lot of.
I still have all the VHSs of that somewhere. So if either of you have a VHS player, and I ever locate where that bucket is, I have it for you.
Do you have the episode where Kirk defends the devil in a court of law and uses magic?
I'm sorry, what?
That's one episode. Yeah.
Oh, good Lord. I've got all the TOS in this lovely house I'm in right now. I have all of the original series on VHS tape.
I used to,
but
all gone.
It's sort of, I've got all this stuff on DVD as well, and I don't use it because streaming is a thing.
I just use Netflix and stuff.
It has made all of my collecting over the years superfluous.
All right, Greg, what's your favorite and least favorite Star Trek show?
I think my favorite is DS9. But like Matt said, that there's really nothing wrong with any of this series. I mean, there's varying degrees.
There are episodes.
Yeah, and I think my least favorite, as much as as a series, Voyager, I dislike Voyager the most. Just watching it recently, it does have some good episodes, but I also think as a whole, I think the third season of the original series is the worst thing ever on Star Trek.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
and that kind of tops Voyager on its own. So
I love the original series, but I don't recommend people watch the whole thing. I recommend cherry picking it. First season is boring. Second season's mostly pretty great.
Yeah.
Third season is bad.
But you want to, again, chocolate cake. Yeah. There's some good third season episodes. I mean, Tholian Web is third season, isn't it?
Oh, that was third season?
I thought that was first.
Is it? I could be getting this sucker real wrong and really destroying my cred. I'm glad we're not on hailing frequencies. We're my expertise.
We're not calling ourselves experts here at Trexperts per se. But yeah, Mike, which is your favorite and least favorite?
I'm actually kind of glad that I'm going to be taking completely different positions than everybody.
Ooh.
I was just about to say, I'm surprised no one picked TNG.
TNG, I would say, is my favorite of the original ones. And I'm also going to I would select Enterprise as my least favorite, but I don't think I can accurately. I kind of have to put an asterisk next to it. That came out, I was out mostly when I was in college, and I just didn't have like the time to really watch it live. And this is before like streaming services came out. So I don't think I can really give it the fair shake. I have kind of gone back and rewatched it, but I never really got into it. But of all the classic shows that I have watched all the way through more than one time, I would actually probably have to say the original series is my least favorite to watch.
Interesting.
That's fair. I love the original series, but like you need to be like that like 60s sci-fi kind of show. Like if you're not into that, I don't think it's going to hold up for you.
Some of it's really good. Some of it's just kind of hard to watch and just seems like long to sit through. I mean, I think the last episode of it I watched was with you when they were, Abraham Lincoln was fighting Genghis Khan on a planet, and just like,
but that's a delightfully absurd episode.
That's indicative of season 3.
Yes, but I have double checked. Tholian Web is season 3, episode 9.
Is it? Okay.
Yeah, I always remember that even in the really bad seasons of Star Trek, and season 3 is a bad season of Star Trek. There's every once in a while you get a gem out of those, and Tholian Web is a great episode of Star Trek.
One of the things I like about Trek is even the worst episodes, usually what the philosophical or ethical thing they're trying to say is usually like what props it up for me.
Not going on a tangent, but I'm right now I'm reading the Star Trek Year 5 comic series from IDW.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And they're actually doing a big thing with Tholians, and it's pretty interesting so far. I mean, I'm pretty far behind, But basically, they get like there's this big like civil war on the Tholian planet, one of the Tholian planets, and basically everybody's dead except for like this one like child Tholian, I guess, and they're trying to break like the communication barrier with it and trying to broker peace between the Federation and Tholian. Kirk's trying to make peace and make good with them, trying to understand them better. It's actually really interesting right now, and I kind of wish I was actually done more so in the show, because Tholians are actually pretty interesting now. With what kind of their whole mythos and such.
Yeah, they're hard to reproduce on anything other than a very high or very low budget. If you have an intermediary budget, you can't have Tholians on the show. Either everything has to look like garbage and you're okay with the Tholians also being garbage, or it's got to have great production value in order to make that work.
Well, we're talking about not necessarily like, at least not starting with TOS. The way I've always kind of said, if you want to get into Trek, start with TNG, because it gives you the classic Trek formula, but it's a much better show.
Yeah.
100%.
And if you want to watch stuff with the original crew, like to get into them, I recommend the movies. Because that's also the only time they ever really get character, like any meaningful character growth. But speaking of that, I also want to quickly run down our list of the favorite movies, because I know we all did the Wrath of Khan episode of Hailing Frequencies, where we kind of did this. And I know we all have wildly different rankings.
We do.
So for me, number 1 is Star Trek VI: The Undiscovered Country.
Okay, yeah.
Number two for me is The Voyage Home, Star Trek 4.
Okay.
3 is Wrath of Khan.
Okay.
4 is Search for Spock.
Okay.
5 is Star Trek Beyond. 6 is Star Trek 2009. 7 is Star Trek the Motion Picture. 8's The Final Frontier, and then 9.
Come on, man.
And then at 9, I hate the TNG movies Into Darkness, kind of all about the same. So I can't rank them at the end there. But whoever wants to go next, run down your list for me.
Okay. I didn't think we were including the J.J. Abrams ones in here.
I wasn't originally going to, but then I thought about it, and I was like, the new shows kind of pull a lot from them. So right. I felt like for me, it kind of made sense to be like, well, where do I actually put them in regards to the classic ones? You guys don't have to do them. I didn't make that part of the homework.
I failed the homework, so I totally forgot to do it. So
yeah.
Okay.
I didn't rank all of them. But
Matt and I will go first, and then we'll give you time to quickly put your thoughts together. I would say I also put Undiscovered Country number 1. I think that might be a theme for everybody on this show. But I would say, like, in terms of grouping, it's very hard to just go like, this is definitely 1, this is definitely 2. But I think in like my next tier down, like First Contact and Final Frontier, Voyage Home, and Search for Spock, I think all 4 of them I could kind of be talked in and out of, whether they're 2 or 5 on them, but those are my next ones. And then after that, it just kind of goes down a little bit, where I would put like Insurrection, Wrath of Khan, and Generations. They were pretty good. They're enjoyable. There's nothing wrong with them, but sort of forgettable. And then the last 2 I would say were Motion Picture and Nemesis. Both of them were just kind of really hard to sit through, I think.
Did you just suggest that Wrath of Khan is just okay? How did this not come up on the episode we did about the Wrath of Khan?
I thought we had Wrath of Khan all about like level 2, like number 2 or 3.
I remember Mike had it lower than most of us.
Yeah, Mike did have it lower, I remember
all right,
that.
That tracks. We have to go back.
My order here might have changed a little bit since that episode.
My list is mostly dictated by like how much I would be willing to rewatch them.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, and
mine was more about themes and what particularly drew me.
To me, part of that stuff does, because like I think Final Frontier is a great theme, but like that movie sucks.
Yeah. The movie itself is terrible, and there's certainly some issues with the science in it. Like it
had a lot of behind the scenes issues.
They get to the center of the galaxy in about 20 minutes, and Voyager takes 70 years. But that's
yeah. But yeah, Matt.
I'm gonna not to be a conformist, but the Undiscovered Country is my favorite one.
It's
Don't worry,
it's
Yeah.
the
I'm not
perfect.
going to do that.
It's such a perfect send off for those characters.
It is a phenomenal. It's a phenomenal movie. It is the most political of all of the movies, and I love that stuff.
Oh,
I
so do
love that sort of wrangling, and I mean, it's got some of the best twists and turns, and for my money, it's the best Star Trek movie. Number 2, I would put First Contact. I love me some weird nerfing of the Borg. I love me some weird Borg queen that doesn't entirely make sense. I like me some
hate the
weird
Borg
drunk.
Queen.
I love
Yeah.
me some weird drunk Zephram Cochrane. It's a strange movie, but I think Patrick Stewart is able to leave his teeth mark on the scenery in every sequence he's in. I like that he continues to show women from more privileged cultures windows in the Enterprise as a weird move. That's just one of the things he does.
I never thought about that. Now I realize he does that a lot in
He
TNG.
does it all the time. It's
yeah.
his thing. He brings women to windows and shows them things and likes to explain things
It's his
to
big
them.
move. It's like
It's
Batman
his
telling
move.
his secret identity.
Yes, yes. Batman, who every woman he's ever told the secret identity to, she thinks she's the only one. Picard likes to show ladies the window. That sounds worse than it is. But then I would probably put Wrath of Khan, and then there you get a weird cluster there where you end up with Search. I don't dislike Search for Spock like I know a lot of people do.
Oh, it's fantastic.
There are parts of Generation I'm very fond of. I really like the first J.J. Abrams Trek movie, which I know a lot of people don't. I like Beyond. I think Beyond is the best of those modern era movies. I think Beyond is really very, very solid. It felt like the most like Star Trek of those. And right there at the bottom, sort of fighting each other in the dirt for the last spot, I would say is probably Into Darkness and Insurrection. I know a lot of people put Nemesis at the bottom, but Nemesis at least was entertaining to watch, whereas
Insurrection's really boring.
Insurrection is kind of just it's very, very dull, and it's mostly about how the cast is aging, and they do this weird thing where Worf is a very long puberty joke. It's not my cup of tea. It's not my cup of tea. But I think Undiscovered Country is clearly the best of them.
All right, Greg, how's your dissenting opinion work?
I mean, it's not really dissenting too much, but it's my favorite of them is First Contact. I love that movie. That's my favorite, but the next tier under that would definitely be Undiscovered Country and probably Star Trek Beyond, just below that. I thought just Beyond was such a great send off. I can't say send off, but a good amalgamation of what the original series kind of was. They've got a lot of character development, and they felt like a good mix of new with the old in the Kelvin timeline. And then there's a bunch of stuff in between, whatever. The movies I hate the most are definitely Scott knows this.
Yeah.
My least favorite movie is The Voyage Home. I hate that movie.
We fight about it at the store all the time.
Hate it. And I honestly,
I'm also not fond of it. Mike and I
fine.
have gotten into fights about it.
Yeah. It's one of those movies you like or you don't, I think.
Yeah.
Right above that Search for Spock, I thought that was it just looked cheap. It was an okay story and it looked cheap. Clearly the budget got cut.
It did. The budget was
crazy.
slashed, yeah.
It looks like that last final scene on the volcano planet, clearly, it looks like garbage. It just looks awful.
It doesn't look good. They could have done the Tholians in that.
But I really, really, I like Final Frontier. As weird as it sounds, I'm a fan of that movie.
You're a fan of Final Frontier.
It's the fourth one down.
I knew you had to be out there somewhere.
Yeah.
For all its shortcomings, I thought the thought of it was pretty good, and it was kind of neat finding God or whatever you want to
I
call it.
love the concept. Yeah,
the concept's great.
It's a great concept.
Spock having a brother, so what? Whatever, everything gets retconned and shoved into everything else, But
I was saying,
Spock having siblings would be an unusual thing, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, where was that sibling? But I suppose we'll get into that.
Not yet.
Yeah, we'll get to that. But Well, that's a good example of like what I was saying. Like sometimes the idea, like the ethical or philosophical idea of an episode or movie, is at least interesting. As I do like the scene where it's like where Kirk explains like why you need your pain, and I like the idea of like a search for God or whatever. I don't think it was handled well, but I know there was a lot of like budgets getting slashed and a writer's strike. There was a lot of problems behind the scenes on that movie. So it's not necessarily that movie's fault that it couldn't capitalize on it. But at the end of the day, it couldn't capitalize on it, and I don't think it's very good. But with that,
interesting that every once in a while I wonder why. So like there are a lot of great Star Trek concepts that could use refurbishment, and I kept waiting for like Wrath of Khan didn't need and this might be mildly spoilery for those of you who haven't seen Into Darkness. Wrath of Khan didn't need a remake. You didn't need a J.J. Abrams version of that, but if you had done a J.J. Abrams version of insert episode that didn't quite work but had a good idea here.
That's part of why I think I dislike Into Darkness as much as I do. Because, all right, the first movie had its problems, but like it set up the crew. And I was like, all right, now's our chance to do something new. And I was like, and I don't really like the Borg. But I was like, maybe they'll bring in the Borg or something that like the original cast never got to do.
Yeah.
You can do something like, or take like an old episode and do something neat with it. But they just gave us like a really crappy version of a really good movie. And it's just like, here's all these references, the things you know. And it's just like, it's just bad. And I don't think J.J. Abrams should write the projects he works on.
I'm just curious about like, In the Darkness, like I agree that it's not a very good movie, but would we have liked it better if legitimately we didn't know this was, Khan?
It might have been played better, and this is something we talked about on that Wrath of Khan episode. Is that they played keep away with information that we all knew. I mean, everybody knew.
That's that JJ mystery box marketing gimmick. I hate that. It's a marketing gimmick. It's not a storytelling convention.
But it worked for. It worked for some of his. Not for some. It worked for Cloverfield.
It got your butt in the seat. It didn't make for a compelling narrative.
And I do agree. Like that whole reverse of like Spock and Kirk, like that they didn't earn that. But
no, they didn't. Because we spend over a decade with these characters. You bought their relationship. So there was weight when one sacrificed himself for the ship. Spoilers for Wrath of Khan, but yeah,
spoilers for everything from here on out.
Yeah.
But yeah, real quick before we get into spoilers, I just want to give real quick spoiler-free thoughts on Discovery, Picard, and if you want to say something about the upcoming Below Decks, if you're looking forward to it or anything. I will say I did not like either of these. I'm not particularly looking forward to Below Decks. And I don't think CBS All Access as a whole is really worth the money.
I mean, I liked. I will say that I was much hotter for Discovery in the first season than the second one. I feel like it lost a lot of what I thought was making the show interesting in the second season. But I am excited for the third season of the show. I am interested to see where they go with it. Picard really had me in the first half, and I thought the ending was not very strong. I thought it sort of fell apart there at the end. Below Decks, I'm interested in. I'm far more interested in the Pike show that is apparently going to be visited upon us. I believe. Hold on, I wrote down the name because I keep just calling it Star Trek Pike. Strange New Worlds. No, it's called Strange New Worlds.
I just thought it was called Pike to go with the.
No, it's going to be Strange New Worlds, which is going to be a more ironically Discovery-based show to spin off from Discovery. But yeah, I am interested, and CBS All Access is worth it purely because it gives you Frasier. Because Frasier is no longer on Netflix, and folks, let's talk about Frasier. Yeah, it is also on Hulu. Yes.
Yeah, I've watched Frasier other places.
You gotta watch more Frasier.
I mean,
now
I've watched it multiple times.
Frasier show.
All right, this was. We had to rope him in with Star Trek. Now we can talk about Frasier.
Now we can talk about Frasier.
He's in an episode of TNG.
Yeah, he is. I'm very excited for
him. And he's in First Contact.
He is.
Yes, he is in First Contact. Yep.
Yeah.
Yes.
So it all makes sense.
Frasier.
Greg, what do you think about the CBS All Access shows?
I agree with Matt that CBS All Access is definitely worth it. It's like even just support Star Trek. You want to see more, and there's so much coming out with it now. Like Section 31, a couple unnamed animated shows, the kids animated show. I think it's too much personally, but if this show gets other people into it, like kids or adults, fantastic. Why can't Star Trek be as good as, I say good in air quotes, as Star Wars? Why can't it have great merchandise, T-shirts, stuff that people
we're
can buy?
at a position right now that Star Trek could become better than Star Wars currently.
It could.
Those movies are bad.
The last one, again, we're not going to talk about that now.
Yeah,
different episode. But,
I will say I would love a Mandalorian caliber show for Star Trek.
I mean, it could be something like Section 31. We have no idea. It could follow what's-her-face the whole time. Not seeing spoilers yet.
Sure.
I have a lot of concerns about Section 31.
But I am excited for Below Decks. Reason being, I was reading something about it. Apparently, it's supposed to be in canon, and it's supposed to take place during episodes of some of the other shows.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
the
that's what
CBS shows or the classic shows?
The classic shows, I believe.
Okay.
I was reading it somewhere. I forget where I read it. I don't know if it's true or not. It could have been on like Cosmic Book News, which is a bunch of horse crap usually. Find the language. But from what I was reading, it's supposed to take place. It's like some canon supposed to be in there with like other episodes going on. I actually liked Discovery Season 2 better than Season 1. I thought they corrected a lot of the mistakes they made in Season 1.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I think they made all kinds of new, less interesting mistakes.
I disagree, but again, we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
And Picard, I agree with Matt. It's the first half really got me.
I loved the first half.
Had some good action, had some good like real like Trek stuff, like more political stuff, and then about 2/3 way through, it's like, oh, we got to finish a season up. Let's do it. And that's unfortunately common with a lot of these 13-episode seasons. Like or any show actually, like you get to this point, you're like, how are they going to do this? And they're like, 2 episodes, like, oh, here they did it. Great. With Discovery, it's a little more watchable if you don't know anything about Star Trek. A little more. Where Picard, I feel you have to really know next gen.
Oh, definitively.
I really enjoyed Picard. And that's how I feel about those shows.
Okay.
Oh, I am excited about All Access, or not All Access, Stranger Worlds, it's supposed to be more episodic in nature, so that's awesome too. So.
Yeah, if we get one of these shows starts feeling like classic Trek, I'll be pretty happy.
Right. I actually tend to cheat a little bit when it comes to the CBS All Access ones, where I will wait till like the final episode is about to be released, and then I will rent CBS All Access for a single month, immediately cancel it, and then just try and binge everything.
That's how I've been doing it, yeah.
And one of the big reasons behind that is I think with Discovery Season 1, I did have it and I was watching it as it came out. And honestly, by the time it got to like the final episode, I was kind of like, wait, what's happening again? This is like one long, like 13 episode season. And so like a lot of the stuff in the beginning kind of got a little lost on me. I will say with Discovery and also with Into Darkness a little bit, when you remember like that big space ball city that they had where they had that adventure through it, one of the things that kind of throws me a little bit is like they're retconning more advanced technology in the past than you see like in the future, which always kind of throws me a little bit in Star Trek.
Same here.
But I will say, so I really liked Picard. I really liked the first season. I don't really like the way it, and I think there's some issues with the way it ended. And I know Matt and I and other people have kind of had like this debate around transporters, whether or not, that's continuity of consciousness. And so part of me wonders, is that really still Picard? Like this isn't, or is that just a copy of him in a body? But
I guess we started spoilers then.
Oops.
That's fine. Spoilers from here on out. Let's just get into it then.
I was gonna try and interrupt you because I was pretty sure you were where you're going. I didn't know if you were gonna pull back the last minute.
I'll put a timestamp in the description. Like, spoilers started a little bit early. But no,
everybody.
Well, let's talk about it then because it's the end of Mass Effect.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
And,
whoa! You spoiled Mass Effect for me, Scott. What the hell?
You didn't say anything about Mass Effect spoilers. Rosebud wasn't sled.
Matt will tell you, I will spoil anything without meaning to spoil any and everything without meaning.
Dude, the day after we saw Star Trek Into Darkness, I came into the store and one of our employees didn't come with us because I thought he didn't like Star Trek. And he was like, he was like, what did you think about it? I was like, it's stupid. They killed Kirk instead of Spock. And he's like, why did you tell me that?
Yes.
Because I was like, I thought you didn't want to see it. But oh yeah, let's do the android. Let's do the android body in the room.
Yeah.
I do not like the tone and direction they've been taking the new series in. I don't like this kind of like miserable, tonally, like it's so incongruently inconsistent with the world. And like I think there's so many little things they could, at least with Discovery, they could have done to alleviate that. I think the first season of Discovery should have started with episode 3, and then we find out why Michael was disgraced kind of later. I think that would have been more interesting, but because your first impression of this character, she did this kind of really stupid, horrible thing, and so you immediately kind of have like a bad opinion of her, and make that take place after the current timeline, if they want, unless they're going to actually make it look like TOS era, which they didn't. It just, to me, it like all of a sudden they have all these cool holographic communicators and things, like, and then the Enterprise shows up, and like it just doesn't, they don't look like they belong in the same world. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's what we talked about with like they kind of retconned the more advanced technology earlier on. I'm like, just a little bit of consistency here. I don't,
Yeah, I don't expect it to look like a crummy 60s set, but...
No, 100%. I think you can very much like use your imagination and say that if the 60s television show had the budget, this is what it would have looked like.
I would say,
that's fine.
Because Enterprise takes place how long before TOS? 100 years, right?
100 years.
You
the
can
first
see,
season.
Yeah, you can see in their bridge and stuff the echoes of where a lot of this technology is going to go. Because it's more of like a submarine naval base. Like they even have like the thing that like Spock looks into. A lot of their like technology, you can kind of see where that would evolve into the TOS sets. I mean, eventually you do see the TOS sets in a Mirror universe episode of that.
Yes, which I think is the best episode of Enterprise. I know
Enterprise got so good and just got cut off. It was setting up all these interesting stories.
Yeah,
they got that new writer on.
Yeah. What's up?
I'm not as up on the Enterprise history. Is there a specific writer that this is?
Shoot. You keep talking. I'll look it up.
Okay. But no, all right, I'm going to state a controversial Star Trek opinion.
Go for it.
The Deep Space Nine episode with the Tribbles did lasting damage to Star Trek. That it
really?
did. I think it did serious, maybe irreparable damage to the way fans interact with the show, because so before that, we had this idea that, well, Klingons sort of always had the ridges on their forehead. We just ignored it.
That's what you mean by it.
And then they went back and they said, no, there's an explanation and we're not giving it to you. Yes, everything was supposed to look like cardboard.
Oh, they gave it to you in Enterprise.
They created explanations, but it made it so that there are a lot of times when they've changed things and have just sort of hand waved and said, you want to know what? You just got to go with it, gang. And that episode was them saying, no, you don't have to go with it. We will explain everything. And they can't. There's a lot of stuff that they just can't.
There's certain things that, yes. I think that one's okay. It'd be one thing if the Klingons were kind of like a more unimportant race. They're important enough that I think it should have been addressed. Maybe not should, but it could. I think addressing it made sense. You can get away with like the Romulans kind of having like different makeup from different continuity. It's like they don't have their like eye ridges and stuff.
Yeah, you get the Trill that change pretty significantly in between TOS. You get a lot of changes with the Cardassians, and for most of these things, we sort of just go, okay, we're going with it. The Trills have dots now.
Like, well, you don't even have to leave like a series because like you can just like Odo's makeup gets way better as the series goes on. Like there's certain things like.
Well, that could be explained as he's learning.
He's getting better at it.
Yeah,
shapeshift a little better. I would just say, like, one of the reasons, though, I think I had Undiscovered Country as high as I did, and The Voyage Home as high as I did, is because they didn't really take themselves so seriously. There was that like kind of hammy humor in it, like you haven't heard Shakespeare until you've heard it in the original Klingon, and Christopher Plummer really like just going full bore, like over the top ham with Cry Havoc and all that.
It's so
and then
good.
And
Well,
then you get into this particular line in Deep Space Nine where it's like, we don't discuss it with outsiders. I love that because it was just kind of this funny throwaway line where it's like, ha ha ha, we all know what the real explanation is. We don't actually need to have a like built-in explanation for it. It just works.
I kind of call it the Wolverine nowadays, because like the whole thing's like, do we need to know? Granted, I know this show came out before the whole origin thing with Wolverine, but like I feel like, do we have to know the origin? We don't really have to know. Who cares? Doesn't matter. It is what it is. Let it go.
Sometimes
what's
it's more
the Joker's real name?
Yeah.
It's like the talking cat on Rick and Morty this season. Like, did we really want to know? We did not.
Yeah, so going back real quick, it was Manny Koto who came on.
Okay.
And he's
responsible for a lot of the improvement, as it were.
Yes, end of season 3, and he was a showrunner of season 4.
Excellent. Oh.
And apparently,
the
ratings were going up, but UPN already said we can't afford this, and they, so.
No.
Well, Greg, you're the reason I gave Enterprise another pass. I got 15 minutes into the first episode, and I was like, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm done.
Like every other Star Trek show, the first season isn't all that great, but seasons 2, it gets better. I think 3 is great, and 4 is pretty good too.
Yeah, Enterprise is better than its reputation holds.
It does. It is.
Because all I heard was just, it's the one that's terrible. I'm like, it's not.
But
it gets much better.
I think that I have watched the first episode of Enterprise more than the first episode of any Star Trek show because of the number of times I've tried to get into Enterprise.
I think you should just
I
skip
feel like
over
I just
it.
got to skip over season 1, and maybe I have to launch in a little bit later.
I don't disagree. Yeah. I would say cherry pick it. Yeah.
For me, the reason I liked season 3 so much, I'm a huge fan of like light serialization, like DS9. So like, there's a whole story arc that goes through season 3, but you don't have to watch every episode to understand what's going on. You kind of solve the episodic nature, but
mythology episodes.
They're definitely on like a mission, but like they have some self-contained stories throughout it.
Yeah. It may be worth to find a list to work my way through the.
Enterprise is worth giving a second pass. It gives a very bad first impression. Where I'd say at least skip the first 6 episodes. But we're not talking. We'll save some more of this discussion. We'll do a whole other episode on Deep Space Nine because I would love to dig into that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I guess let's talk about the ending of Picard.
Oh yeah.
We were there.
Yeah,
we were there, and then we sidetracked.
Let's get into that because that seems to be divisive. Let's say.
Yeah.
So who wants to broach the subject first?
I mean, Mike already broached the subject.
Yeah,
why don't you go fully on your thought
why don't you
there?
explain to us what it is?
I actually I rewatched the entire season. The first time through, I was like, oh, this is terrible. I didn't like it. But then I realized they kind of had to do what they did in order to get that scene with Data, which to me, I thought made the entire season. I thought that was singularly the best scene of the season. And I think it did a really good job in kind of shoring up Nemesis, which is my least favorite movie, and just left such a terrible taste in my mouth with the way it ended with that crew, unlike Undiscovered Country, which is like they all went out on this incredible high note.
Well, part of what makes Nemesis suck as an ending for TNG is All Good Things is the perfect send-off for that crew.
100%. That is the best final episode of a Star Trek show.
I'll agree with that.
I'm going to say it's the best final episode of a show. I don't think that there's a final episode. I mean, maybe the Breaking Bad finale.
I was going to say Breaking Bad, but they're also going
finale.
It's apples and oranges because they're going for 2 totally different things.
Very, very different things. But I mean, they pioneered a lot of tricks that other shows use, like the moving through time. A lot of season finales or other series finales these days love to give you the jump ahead and show you the future. That's a Star Trek. That's that last episode.
One of my minorest of nitpicks with it is that it didn't actually happen.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah.
And at the end, the entire crew, the only person who actually experienced it was Picard. He let the other crew know what happened in it, but it's like that second or third episode of Voyager when they go to that planet where there's that energy explosion and they prevent it from happening. And then they flash back and they're just going straight through it, and Kes just kind of comes out like, I feel odd. And those kind of shows like always bother me a little bit when it doesn't actually have a lasting impact on the show. But other than that, I think it's a perfect show.
The best episode of Voyager didn't happen. which
Oh,
is the
yeah.
Year
A
of
lot
Hell.
episodes of Voyager.
Year of
didn't-
Hell. Oh, there actually that is a thing. Voyager undoes a lot of
That's
its own
one
show.
problem. with
Did you see the article that just came out recently about
Oh
how like,
yeah, that they wanted to do a whole season of the
that's
Year
what
of
it should
Hell.
have been.
That's what that show
would've been
should have
interesting.
been.
I complained to Scott about that so much because like that
Yeah.
I was so excited. It's like this is gonna be so great. Because the first time I watched it through stream. I'm like, oh, this is gonna be this is gonna be really cool. And then it's just a lousy two-parter. It's like they could have done so many cool. They could have gone somewhere and done something so different that
Right.
they never
That
done before.
Year of Hell is emblematic of my big problem with Voyager. Voyager's got amazing concepts and they just squander them.
Mhm.
If they do on occasion, I think that they have. I mean, I of course rather enjoy the show. I really like the characters. Janeway is my favorite captain.
She's written too inconsistent for me.
I like her. She's fickle. And she was totally justified in what she did to Tuvix, and I won't hear anything else about it.
I don't have strong enough opinions on Tuvix. Because I just don't care about the characters by the time that happened.
Go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, I can't remember if it's season 3 or I think it's season 4 opening, The Expanse. I thought like when that came out and I was watching it live, like that would be this whole season, that they're just in this darkened part of space that they can't get out of. But yeah, I think it's just too inconsistent as far as, one time they're in this expanse, another time they're here. It's the writing's all over the place. But they had such great canvas to work with in terms of what they could have done with the show.
We should have got something new and we just got reheated TNG episodes.
And that's the thing I'm hoping the most about Discovery. They can do some new things now in season 3 since they're so far in the future.
Yes.
They can do some neat things with this.
My
Now,
problem with that,
I don't know.
My problem with that is just like I just don't care about those characters.
And that's fair enough. But like the characters have really grown on me since season 1. Like not all of them are great, but like there's a decent balance. Like I feel like they're not like DS9 or the original series or Next Gen. But they're like I think Enterprise-ish and or just where some characters more thought out better than others.
I will say a lot of Enterprise characters had to grow on me. I hated T'Pol for the longest time, but I do like her by the end of it.
Have you heard of Star Trek Federation, the original show that was going to follow Voyager?
No.
So I feel I am of the opinion that this is what they're sort of reusing, or at least some of the concepts for Discovery season 3, because originally the idea was that they would jump ahead again another 100 years into the future of Trek, and at that point the Federation will have almost completely collapsed.
Oh yes, I did hear about this. Yes.
Yeah, and that you would have a new Starship Enterprise that would be, their mission would be to go out after this isolationist period for Earth and reach out and try and rebuild the Federation to deal with some unspecified future threat. And the Klingons have become these warrior monk culture, and the Ferengi are the big power in the galaxy. They've commodified the Bajoran religion. The marriage of Ram and Lita created this alliance between Ferenginar and Bajor where they sell access to the Tears of the Prophets, and that's whatever. Yeah, it's this.
I grimace because that's such a gross concept, but it's very in character.
It's super. For the Ferengi, absolutely. If they had conduits to speak to gods, they would commodify them like that.
And their whole religion is based on like paying, and like that's their whole way of.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's part of what I love Deep Space Nine. We'll save it for a Deep Space Nine episode.
All right, so back to Picard.
All right, so back to Picard. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead. Back to Picard.
We'll go back to Picard real quick.
Discovery season 3 seems to be about rebuilding the Federation after it's collapsed. And I'm interested to see how far they go in. Like one of the characters on Federation was supposed to be a future Dax.
Okay, so
they were supposed
symbiote.
to recruit, the symbiote in a new body back into the crew. So I'm interested to see if they pick up some of these weird plot threads from earlier Trek shows and sort of use Discovery in the far future as a way to explore what could have happened that sort of made this all collapse. That is very interesting to me if that's the way they go with it.
Well, that's the thing is like I want to get new stuff from, especially because like you can do such crazy different things in this universe. Like maybe we've left the galaxy and then I could open up a whole new bunch of things. Even just something as simple in Deep Space Nine, there's a stable wormhole and how that changes everything.
Yeah.
But two things that really bother me about Picard, they're bugaboos I have about Trek more as a whole. I think the Borg have been overdone to the point where they're completely uninteresting. And I think that the Romulan world or supernova explosion that kicked off the Kelvin timeline is dumb. And so this Picard is all about the two of those.
See, I agree with you partially on the Borg thing. I thought they became useless like throughout Voyager and some other stuff. They became like the bad of the week for a while. But I thought they did a really good job of redeeming like what the Borg are in this one, because they're not the Borg. They're people not being Borgs anymore. Like, so I thought it was way different. So
that's fine. But like I especially once you started doing like a Borg queen, like that took away what made the Borg so interesting. Like they're like the xenomorphs. Like the more you learn about them, like you get too familiar, and it's like takes all the mystique away.
The problem with the Borg is that they're too good a villain. They essentially built something for TNG that was, by definition, unstoppable.
They were supposed to be used once every 3 seasons or so.
Yeah, they weren't designed to. I mean, think of how much they were used in the Next Generation, and I would argue that really a lot of the appearances of the Borg in TNG. I mean, for their biggest appearance after Best of Both Worlds, they're partially under the control of Lore.
Yeah, it's weird.
I
do like iBorg.
I mean, iBorg with Hugh is great, and I loved seeing Hugh again in Picard. There's a lot of stuff that happens in Picard that I really, really like, particularly in the early half of the show.
I need more than just remember, it's Bruce Maddox. He's from TNG. Like, I need more than that. I didn't think the story was very interesting.
Disagree.
I don't think the story was very interesting.
I think they pushed it in
it was
some new
confusing.
directions.
What was that, Matt?
I think they pushed in some neat new directions. I mean, I also really liked seeing the idea of they're a reclamation center for ex-Borg, that they're sort of this is incredibly advanced technology even by future standards, and they're refurbishing and fixing up people that have been in the collective, and they're trying to see how the technology works. And
in a vacuum, I like that. I just didn't like how they handled a lot of the stuff around it.
Yeah, they had a lot of stuff that they introduced a lot of like interesting ideas, but it doesn't feel like they really went very far with it, because they had like this overarching like storyline that they wanted to follow. So all these little things came in with like the Borg and Hugh and like all of that, and it's been like, I kind of want more of that, and I kind of want more of this, and we were just kind of.
It's the problem that new Trek has, where it's like the pacing is too rushed. It's trying to be too slick all the time.
Right,
And I will say this about the CBS shows, like they look like movies.
Yeah.
I mean, the production values are beautiful.
Yeah, like I can't take that away from them. I just don't think the writing's there. But you've watched Discovery, and it's like 40 producers in the credits, and it's like there's too many cooks in the kitchen a lot of the time, I think, with this stuff.
There's also one other point about like Scott, that you brought up about like or maybe it was Greg, I'm sorry, about like this whole the supernova and the after effects of it. One of the things that's actually kind of really sad to me about Picard is that it seems to kind of invalidate a lot of what Spock was working towards the last time we saw him in the Next Generation, the Romulan Vulcan reunification, and that seems to have gone absolutely nowhere. And it was just kind of like, oh, that's just sad now in retrospect that he had given his whole life to this project, and it's absolutely died on the vine.
Not only that, but like what bothers me about it is all right, so Star Trek usually has at least a foot in like realistic theoretical science. That's not how supernovas work. If one did destroy Romulus, this Romulan Star Empire has more than one planet. Right. It's like it wouldn't immediately make them all like homeless space refugee.
What was that undiscovered country? I think it was when like one of the moons on Kronos blows up and it
Explodes,
sends
yeah.
like
That
a
is the
shock
thing.
wave for like 20 light years out in every direction. Like, I don't think that's how shock waves work.
Yeah.
Well, the moon was an enormous power plant, and it was a metaphor for Chernobyl. So we gotta give it to them on that one, because it's
Fair
not
enough.
supposed to be realistic. It's supposed to allow them to explore the Cold War from
because
Star Trek.
Yeah, the show's that episode's really about the end of the Cold War, but like
Yeah.
but the message of it's also really like the future belongs to the next generation. No pun intended. But that's also why it's such a great send off for that. I love that movie.
It's a phenomenal movie.
Yes.
I look forward to talking about it with Harry in
100
years.
Yeah. I will say I'm glad he's watching the TNG or the TOS movies because they really are like the I think the best way to experience that crew.
Yeah, if he was just watching the original series by itself, I don't know if it's
quit a long time ago.
Yeah,
I was about to say when Star Trek first came to Netflix, I was like, oh, I'm going to watch all of it. And I was like, I'll start at the beginning, and it took me forever to get through season 1. But that was back when we were getting like one disc at a time. At a certain point, I just like didn't order the next one.
Oh, you meant when Netflix started as a disc service?
No, when Netflix first got Star Trek,
wow.
it was still doing disc.
Wow, that is well before I started watching Star Trek on Netflix.
Yeah, but that's how I started on Netflix. That's how I watched Deadwood and a bunch of other shows. I could get them one disc at a time.
Yeah,
but so for me, Picard's kind of coming off on that, and then like the new characters aren't all that interesting. And one of the things I was looking forward to it because I thought they'd, with 7 of 9 joining the crew, I was like, oh, she and Picard were like both part of the collective. Like
I wish they had more of that.
They could have done. Yeah. I was like, oh, their interactions could have been so interesting. I would like to have seen her character like, what do you do now that you're back in like society? Like, how is she using like all of her skills? She's just murdering things. I'm like, oh.
Yeah, I did not like the direction.
It's the least interesting thing they could have done with her.
Now, this is something Mike and I have discussed at great length, where he is not fond of what they did with 7, and I'm pretty much fine with it. Anytime they want to give me more 7 of 9, I'm fine with it.
I'm pretty indifferent. Like, I felt like she was just means to an end a lot of it. Like, I think she deserves better than that. But
yeah,
I do like, I'm glad she's probably be back for next season. So, I mean, we might get more of that. Might get more of that stuff. And I do, the new crew, whatever you want to call them, did grow on me by the end of it. But
there's some good stuff there.
I don't think they did the service to her. It just wasn't very groundbreaking.
It just could have been so much more interesting.
I know I'm kind of mixing the Star Trek characters in now with the Star Wars characters, but it kind of felt like a series of just like hits to me, because like when the new movies came out and you saw kind of Luke is just kind of like this sad, like broken old man, and same thing with Han, and then you see the same thing with Picard, and then 7. I was just like, ugh.
It's so depressing, isn't it?
It was just really depressing. Like, these were the people I looked up to as a kid. Like, this is what
I think their development has followed the development of society.
That's true, and that's the thing. I think one of the things about the show that kind of bothered me the most. Can't say bothered me the most, but like it's kind of what you're saying. It's sort of like Star Trek to me is always at its best when humanity's at its best. Where Hard Discovery give a little more leeway to because they're before, but this like you see like how broken the Federation is in Picard, and there's really like. It's not that altruistic, not that grand. Humanity's great anymore. It's like, oh, we're just as bad as we always been. What's her face doing the drugs? Drinking herself to. So like that bothered me, and I get it because it kind of reflects what's going on now. Like, but again, it's supposed to. The Federation's supposed to be above everything else, and they kind of bring it back.
Yeah, both of them lost their hopefulness, and I think that's what like the bad thing is, because Roddenberry had like this hopeful vision of the future, and that there is no problem created by technology that technology can't fix, and that the human spirit can't fix. And here we're seeing a breakdown of that, and it's just kind of like, ugh.
And you know what? A breakdown of that could be interesting if done a little bit better, because I will say Deep Space Nine definitely pushed back on some of the ideas. It never broke them, but it definitely challenged a lot of the ideals. One of the best episodes, oh my god, I'm blanking on the name, but when Sisko's is being underhanded and trying to get the Romulans
in the Pale Moonlight.
In the Pale Moonlight,
yeah, it's one of the best episodes.
It's phenomenal.
Like, it's obviously not the the moral upstanding way of doing it. All right, so we're gonna definitely do a Deep Space Nine episode.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So what did you guys think about the doctor? I forget her name off the top of my head in Picard. The
Girardi.
doctor. Yeah, because I thought she like I liked her like her evolution in that like you see like how she like was altruistic then was kind of broken down, then she realized that she should have been better than she was, and so I thought that was interesting. Like her character went through so much in that show.
Yeah,
I think one of the only characters who went through a lot in that show.
This is Allison Pill we're talking about?
Yeah, Allison Pill,
Pill's
yeah,
character,
yeah.
yeah. I think Allison. First of all, I like seeing Allison Pill in anything. Allison Pill, I think, is a phenomenal actress. I think she's great in just about everything she does. I liked the Girardi character. I wish there had been a little bit more of a. So they built up this thing where she is heavily influenced by Commodore O's mind meld that gave her these horrifying visions, and they sort of explain that she's not in her right mind when she kills Bruce Maddox. And I feel like maybe that was a little bit of a cheat. I don't like the I was mind controlled or explanation of stuff. It felt very much. I mean, it's sort of not to drag comic books into it, but it's very much like how eventually they had to retcon. No, Jean Grey didn't commit genocide.
Well, it takes
she
away
didn't
the
kill all the people on that planet.
It takes away the character's agency, and that's that's never satisfying to see.
Yeah, but I like Girardi as a character quite a bit.
That moment read to me, I know you guys went to comic books, but it read to me a little bit as like the DM saying, I don't want you to have access to this character anymore. So I'm removing your ability to continue questioning.
We are going to do a Dungeon Master episode soon where we're going to talk like tips and tricks, and that's going to be one of the things I bring up is character agency. You can never take character agency away from your players.
No, instead you just take away their well of information.
Yeah.
Well, it's why having character NPCs that have enchantment spells or like control is so. Anyway, that's a different episode of this show. That's a very different episode of this show.
But look forward to it. It's coming up.
Yeah. But no, I liked Girardi quite a bit. I liked Rios. I really liked the conceit that by this point in the development of Star Trek, they have emergency holograms for every function on the ship. Yeah. And they're all played by that same actor. And I thought he did a great job.
Absolutely.
I mean, that had to have been, number one, very difficult to shoot, but also a lot of fun to get to play 6 different versions of yourself on one show.
He's on this show that I'm working my way through now. It's like a BBC rendition of the Three Musketeers, but it's kind of done in like a like the way Hercules and Xena was kind of like put together, where it's like they're kind of wandering around, like solving. It very much reminds me of that, but he's a good actor.
No, he's solid. He's solid. There's so much about the setup for Picard and sort of the functioning of the crew that I like. That, although I still don't entirely understand why they're a crew, I don't know if they've given them that yet. Quite.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that they were all so upset when Picard died confused me, because for some of them, like you've known this guy for like 8 days. Yeah, I know he's got a reputation, but I don't think you should be the one sobbing at his funeral. Where are Will and Deanna? Get them back in here.
And
they should be crying.
And I didn't want like a full TNG reunion. Like I didn't want all the crew members to return and be part of the crew. I mean, if this was I
at least wanted Beverly.
If this was the Nexus generation and not Picard, then yes, that would be a different story.
Yeah.
But I'm glad they didn't do that. I mean, Will and Deanna and eventually get to see some Data, but like, I don't know. So the thing the reason I watched the show, and the reason I'm so disappointed in it, is I watched it because there was a pit bull in it, and he's almost non-existent in the show. I have a pit bull in real life. I love that Patrick Stewart has one and has been a big advocate, and he's the reason they used that dog.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then, his dog in real life, I think her name's Ruby. She's adorable. But
is that not his dog in real life? Because
no, it's not his dog in real life. This is an actor dog.
I have seen him with the dog. I used to live not far from him in Brooklyn.
Okay. Yeah. But I know they started as fostering, and then they just adopted her. But I know he's been a big actor, so I was like, all right, I'll watch it. He's got a dog. For that reason, and like the dog's barely in it. Like,
Yeah.
it's worst show of all time. I feel baited and switched. That ruined the entire series for me. No, that's obviously not.
You need a version of that website, Does the Dog Die? That's called Is the Dog in It a Lot?
Yeah.
To tell you how many minutes of the program is going to center on the dog so that you can prepare.
Instead of Schrodinger's cat, we can have Picard's dog.
Yeah, it's the dog in the episode.
It's actually
until you watch it, it's either is or it isn't. But that said, I am glad that he pushed for that, and like, because it's a good breed of dog. It's just got a bad reputation.
What did you think about Data or Dr. Noonan's song having a son ex machina?
Another Brent Spiner Noonan song. They got the strongest genes in the galaxy. Jesus.
It just all look the same. Eventually, we're gonna find out it's all cloning, and that none of them are actually.
I would buy that because there's an episode of Enterprise where they meet like his grandfather. He's working with the.
Is a good episode of Enterprise.
He's working with the augments.
Yeah, I liked that little arc.
And then he's got to build robots that look exactly like him too.
Yeah. What was that, Mike?
I actually like that idea. If it's really a clone the entire time, something like I don't know.
There's only been one Noonan Soong, and it's
almost something like an aboleth, where he creates a copy of himself, and it has all like the memories of what came before it.
I agree with you guys about I was just reading something about it. Apparently, that's one of the reasons why he came back, because he didn't want to be Data anymore, and he didn't want to. He just felt that I just don't want to be Data. So pretty much he acquiesced to like him being a different character, even though it's a character he already played.
Is that why Data wanted to die?
Yeah.
Part of it.
I do believe
he Han Solo'd it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Brett
I mean, part of it
Spiner-
is too because he got such a shitty ending in Nemesis. But yes. So like, in the end of the day, it was ridiculous. But that was part of the reason because they had the story with Data to do this thing, and Brent wouldn't want to come back unless they did this. So,
Yeah, it's definitely like Han Solo in The Force Awakens, yeah.
But I can understand it a little bit more with Brett Spiner and Data, because that character could theoretically live forever. And like you could have Star Trek go on for another 40, 50, 100 years where they're just constantly having CGIs of like Brett Spiner. And he's like, no, I want some finality to this character. Like,
I understand. I mean, he blew up pretty good in Nemesis. That could have just been the end of it.
But it was a crappy ending.
Yeah.
It was an ending.
That's actually why I liked the whole scene he had with Picard when he had Picard up. Yeah, when he had that back and forth.
Again, in a vacuum, I like it. I just didn't
like it in the position that it was. You liked the
sentiment behind it.
I feel like the whole season
the wrapper
built up to that.
It did. I agree with you. That was the one real consistent thing for the season, is building up to this final talk between Picard and Data.
I know I've said it in Hailing Frequencies. I probably said it pretty early on if you want to catch and listen to that. But, like, I like Data. I just don't like him nearly as much as the writers do. I think there's way too many Data episodes in general. And, like, I think he's I think,
overused.
Again, he's overused. And it's the same problem I have with, like, the Joker. You can only tell you kind of at a certain point you start repeating your stories again. And it's just like, all right, you've got diminishing returns. Like, after Measure of a Man, like, that one's pretty early, but there's still classic Data episodes, and there's ones I really like. But, like, there's, like, Worf barely gets explored in TNG. And then in Deep Space Nine, he becomes one of my favorite characters. And retroactively becomes my favorite character from TNG. but I can't give that to TNG, because TNG barely used him. He's mostly just used to be like, hey, this is how I would deal with this situation, and then they ignore it, or it doesn't work.
And someone tells them to shut up.
Or like whatever alien threat just beats him in a second to show how dominant they are.
There's a great supercut of Worf being told no by Picard on YouTube. That's like 20 minutes long, that it's just every instance where Worf suggests something and Picard just no. Why?
Do you know how many episodes would have not occurred if they had just listened to Worf from the very beginning? Like, we should not go in there, or we should just blow it up. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, any final thoughts on Discovery or Picard especially? You guys think it was worth the trip? Looking forward to season 2?
I mean, I want to. Oh, go ahead, Mike.
No, I was going to say, we're kind of in spoiler territory again.
Oh yeah, go I heard spoilers. Yeah.
I heard a rumor. I don't know if this constitutes a spoiler or not, but that Will Wheaton is going to be brought back for
Ooh.
season 3, not season 2.
3?
Yeah. That he was that they've already finished out like the pre-production.
Oh boy, everyone loves Wesley Crusher.
I mean, I love Wesley Crusher.
I actually think like the
But-
way he had his ending with Data, like if it was like a goodbye for real ending with Picard, it would make sense that he would have it with of all characters Wesley.
Do you think they're going to come out and reveal that Picard's his real father?
Oh gosh, fingers crossed, eyes crossed, nose crossed, toes crossed, anything you can cross them. I mean, but Wesley, and this is going into a real. I mean, Wesley was or was not a higher dimensional being by the end of that show.
Was
Yeah.
He was
Yeah.
But then
becoming, he was
in
becoming
Nemesis.
it, but he was pretty close to it.
And then he showed up again at the wedding.
Yeah,
But
it
he
was.
showed up in the wedding as like a lieutenant.
Yeah, he had on.
Yeah,
a
he was back in
uniform.
Starfleet. Yeah,
Yeah.
but his story arc in TNG is he was disillusioned and purposefully left Starfleet.
Yes.
Also, what's weird to me is, and I could be a little off on this, but I think I'm right. Will Wheaton is now older than Patrick Stewart was in season 1 of The Next Generation.
I believe that is true.
Yeah.
Oh wow, bald men really I wouldn't have guessed that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
Which
he
is-
was also playing older because he was
Yeah.
only in his 40s or something in that when
Okay.
40s or
Let me
50s
just
when they
check
no
to see if-
40s when they started.
He was in
filming that
his
show.
earlier to mid 40s. He was like 45, 46 when season 1 came out, but he was playing somebody who was 60.
All right,
Will
that might
Wheaton-
be why I thought that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's supposed to be older than he is, just to show how great that 24th century medical care
Hey
is.
man, they started off with 100-plus-year-old bones, so
That is true. That is true. Oh,
he
well,
didn't. He did not look all that good though, but
that is also true.
Um,
And didn't the first season has that weird episode with the admiral aging
yeah,
backwards
he goes backwards.
with the
That was-
really.
That was an episode of Healing Frequencies I did.
Oh yeah. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah,
you were the guest on that episode.
Yeah, I said I was all over season 1.
Yeah.
Um,
It's such a weird season. That's before they settled on an actual uniform for admirals. Where every
Yeah.
time they introduced an admiral, he was wearing a wildly different set of clothing.
well, I know
Yeah.
Greg and I have discussed this in person many times, but like the first season of every episode of Star Trek's pretty much the worst season of it. More or
Yeah.
less, there can be an argument for season 3 being worse than season 1 in TOS, but like it's usually because they don't know their footing with these characters yet. I will say Deep Space Nine's is probably the best overall in terms of getting where the show's gonna. You can already see where like the show's gonna be in that.
Yes.
Whereas TNG, like
Yeah.
the characters really weren't there until season 2.
Well, as I mentioned,
Right.
I think my favorite, either my favorite or tied for my favorite with In the Pale Moonlight and Inter Artem Silent Gas is Duet, which is a first season episode of Deep Space Nine, which is mostly powered by the guest star in that episode, who just turns in a phenomenal the guy who plays Eamon Maritza, or not Eamon Maritza.
He was also the mobster on Frasier, and
Right,
we've come
that's
full circle.
right. Oh my God. Okay, so Cafe Nervosa. What's your no?
Let's say I know Ensign Harry's watching Frasier as well, so soon we can talk to him about that.
Oh, I've infected Harry with all sorts of interests over the years.
I used to watch Frasier when it was on. Now it's a Frasier podcast. I watched Frasier when it was new when I was a kid, and I really liked it. And I've since seen it again. But like a couple of summers ago, I was like, I never really watched Cheers. I was too little, and I just never had a desire to go back. So
it is dark.
So yeah, oh yeah. So I watched Cheers, and then I was like, I'm just gonna go into Frasier's such a better show.
Frasier's just fun. The early seasons of Cheers are it's very dark,
very depressing,
very depressing.
I remember watching what I was watching a season 1 or 2 episode of Cheers recently, and they were talking about having a World War I reunion. I was like, what? Oh, this is from the 80s.
From the
That's
80s,
right.
yeah.
That makes more sense.
Yeah.
Cheers is definitely a product of its time.
Right.
Yeah.
There's a gay scare episode pretty early, and
yes. And there's an episode. I mean, you want to know what? It's not even worth talking about. It's a very, very dark show.
Yeah.
Just skip to Frasier. Everyone who can hear the sound of my voice.
It's worth. You don't need to. I will say you don't need to watch it, but it was nice because you get a lot more Lilith. in
That's true.
Cheers, and
Well,
she
cherry
and Frasier
pick.
are the best. Yeah. She and
Cheers
Frasier are the best part
is
of that.
the original series to Frasier's The
Yes.
Next Generation.
That's fair. But yes, to go back to wrapping up this episode. Of
this Frasier fan podcast.
Yeah. I did just double check.
Right?
It's Frederick show, yeah, Frederick.
Yeah.
Will Wheaton is now at least the same age that Patrick Stewart was when season.
Okay.
I'm glad we got to the bottom of that. Oh my god.
Well, gosh. But I'm interested to go back to your original question, which was how did we feel about Picard? I'm interested to see where they go. I don't know where they will go. I'm not sure. I don't. They really left us. They sort of wrapped everything up, and now they're just gonna do Picard type stuff with a maybe not Picard robot. And I think I'm more excited for Discovery purely because they have gone to the far future.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very excited to see Strange New Worlds. I thought Anson Mount as Pike in season 2 was really phenomenal.
Easily the best part of Discovery.
Yeah, I've liked all of the short Trek stuff with him in it. Him and Rebecca Romaine and Ethan Peck as Spock. I really liked that whole little dynamic they formed. I'm interested to see what they do. I'm very happy that I have Star Trek to watch. Anything they want to do to put more Star Trek on there, even if I'm not super into it, I'm still going to be happy with.
Yeah, I'm hoping for Discovery. I'm more excited for because you have an idea kind of where it's going, and I think it's like I said earlier, it's going to be probably do something different.
Yeah.
But with Picard, I'm really hoping they kind of do more of a personal story. I'm tired of all these shows being world ending or world breaking or Federation breaking.
I agree 100%.
Let the viewer, let us, have something a little smaller. Whether I understand Strange New Worlds is going to be more episodic, but like Picard can be this overarching story, but still have a more down to earth, no pun intended for that, story where it's a grounded story where it's not just I got to defeat this person because they're going to destroy the Federation. Something a little on a smaller scope.
It's one of the things that bothers me about most of the movies is after Wrath of Khan, it's the villain that's like, I'm out for revenge. I've got a doomsday weapon. It's just like...
And just to be clear, it's not a thing that Star Trek does. It's everybody does it. All shows have this. Like right now, I'm binge watching Supernatural. It's like every time, it's like, how are they going bigger than the apocalypse? They keep going bigger and something different and something weird.
It's the Doctor Who problem.
Yeah.
It's how many times can you destroy all of reality before I stop caring that you're destroying all of reality?
I can tell you when I stopped caring. I haven't watched Doctor Who in years.
And that's my hope for Picard.
I'd like that. Something smaller.
I want to see him be like more like. I don't want him to be an action star anymore. Like he wasn't really that much of Picard, but like he became an action hero more or less in the 4 movies.
And that's one of the reasons I don't like those movies because they feel very out of character and they're not playing to A, the character strengths, and B, Patrick Stewart's strengths.
But yeah, overall, I'm excited about all the new, like Matt was saying, like any new Star Trek is good Star Trek to me. So,
Strange New Worlds might be good. I'll look forward to that, but I haven't really been liking the direction the Star Trek's been going in for a while, so they've got a lot to prove for me. But that said, I think that's going to wrap up our episode here.
But Mike didn't get to talk.
Oh, Mike, do you think you got to go? I thought you got to go.
Oh, no, it's fine. No, I was just going to say, like you asked me what I liked about Star Trek from the beginning.
Say this is the Lord of the Rings. I just keep ending it.
Yeah. Okay, well,
I gotta go to the bathroom.
It's our first episode. We're getting through the kinks here.
Yeah.
Yep. No, but I really liked like the episodic format and the fact that they could do an episode about, what if 2 things from history were slightly different? What if there was this, what if this thing in science that we could explore? And then what if there was this, matter of law that we could explore? And so I'm looking forward to Strange New Worlds, kind of getting back to that. Let's dive into this just a little bit and see, and play with those theories a little bit rather than just have one theme that takes 13 episodes that we're kind of sort of paying attention to along the way, which I kind of was
agree
with.
Okay.
The last episode of Picard.
No.
All right, real quick. Thanks for everyone for joining us here. My guest here, is there any place where we can follow you on social media or have anything you want to plug?
Just listen to Hailing Frequencies. Mike and I are on it a bunch. It's Hail Frequencies, wherever you pod your casts and cast your pods.
I know it's I know the website soundcloud.com/hailing-frequencies.
Okay. That's got a dash.
Yeah, we just did
like spider hyphen
we just did a special video episode of it for our Free Comic Book Day online event. I just got that uploaded to our YouTube page. Right. I don't know if the audio version's gone up on the regular podcast channel for it yet. But
right. I haven't seen it pop up yet, but I'm sure it will.
But yeah, if you want to watch it right now, I know Greg and Becca from the store are special guests on it.
Ooh. And you get to see all kinds of cool ships behind me.
Yeah, I was going to say, you guys get to take advantage of the video and you get to show off some of your cool stuff. Becca's got like a batleth and a couple of things. Even Harry has some cool stuff to show off. So you can go watch that right now. Mike, is there any place where we can find you? Just Hailing Frequencies?
I would repeat what Matt said, just Hailing Frequencies, and obviously this podcast as well.
Oh yeah, I'm sure we'll be back. Well, I got a Deep Space Nine episode to do. We're also talking about potentially doing a baseball episode. So
all right,
wants to come in
and a Frasier episode. I'm not sure how much that goes into.
we can do a Frasier episode. I know our friend Brian would also be very down for that.
Hell yeah! You want to talk about Frasier? I'm here.
Yeah,
I can successfully sidetrack anything into Frasier. For instance, I was on this podcast recently about Star Trek, and I just completely diverted it into a Frasier conversation for like 15 minutes.
If fans demand it, I'll bump Frasier to the top of the list.
I'm the final boss in this one, Scott. We'll do one.
Yeah, but
I'm on board.
But if you have a topic you'd like to see us tackle in the future, please leave a comment or contact us at contact@levelupentertainment.com. Next time our topic is going to be about pinball. So make sure you stay tuned to learn our favorite games, some tips, and maybe we'll get some interesting stories from competitions and events. Until then, face front, true believer.